The only thing I would say is this.
Yeah.
I highly encourage people to avoid using directions, and this
Mm.
is different from stage directions, but setting directions, unless it's absolutely necessary, because it causes a couple problems. If I was just to write, on one side, and again, there's that was.
Mm.
So instead of doing it this way, we might do an old rusted cauldron sat to one side and a glass display with a wolf skull to the other.
Yeah.
If it does not matter that one is to the right and one is to the left, I'm
Mm.
going to allow the reader to put that wherever they want, because one of the things about the reader's imagination is as they have inconsistencies in where things are,
Mm.
they can adjust it if they're the ones that created it.
Yes.
Releasing your inner dragon. All right, Marie. So we have another victim, I hear, on the chopping block. Um, so let's just dive right into it as we have been doing this season and tell us a little bit about it, what to kind of expect, and then let's share it. If you guys are not on YouTube, if you're just listening, we will do our best because we are going to read and critique this piece. But if you want to see it, head on over to YouTube, then you can see it. And, for your troubles, go ahead and hit like and subscribe and all of that stuff. So, all right. So what do we got?
Okay, so we were sent by one of our listeners a 700 piece, which is the introduction to their novel. And that is what we are going to go through today, or as much of it as we get through. Sometimes we get through the whole piece, sometimes we get through a
The
couple of
first paragraph.
paragraphs. So it just depends on how much we find to talk about. So
And
we're
this
going to
is
hit this.
this is the opening, like the very
Yes.
first page. All right. Because
Opening
that opens
700
up so
words.
many other things to think about and talk
Yeah.
about and why these are so
Yeah.
important. And also it brings up a good point. We wanted to do another episode of the first page reads. So if
Yes.
you don't know what that is, it's something that a lot of they do in a lot of writers conferences. They used to. I haven't seen them in a while.
They still do.
Do they? Okay, cool. Because they should. And basically what it is it's usually agents and publishers. I get put on them every time. I'm like the only writer that's up there, and I have no skin in the game because I'm not an agent or a publisher. But they will, from the conference, they'll get people to submit the first page of their manuscript. And somebody will read it, and the people on the panel will raise their hand when they would stop reading it and reject it. And then you can kind of see where things are. Now, in those, I'm always the first to raise my hand, and I always lean over to the others. I'm like, you're lying. They're like, oh yeah, I know we would have rejected that a long time ago.
Yeah.
But they're in front of people.
But yeah.
They're trying to be
So
nice.
yeah. So we have done one of these publishing games, and it was pretty popular. We'd love to do another one. So if you're interested in submitting your first page, not for a critique, but for the publishing game, go ahead and send it to us. But this is a critique. So just to tell you what the difference is, if you want us to critique your work in detail, send us 1,000 words. Tell us where in your story it fits in roughly, so we know what we're looking for. And we will critique it like this live on air, obviously keeping your name secret. And yeah, so that's what we're doing today. So without further ado, I am going to share my screen.
It's releasing your inner dragon at gmail.com, and the link will be down below.
Yeah, link
Just
down below, releasing your inner dragon at gmail.com, all one word.
yeah.
Okay, so I will start reading and then we'll read a couple of paragraphs and see how it goes. Nara lay still as the shadow of the closing curtain swept across the back wall. Only when she heard the footsteps of her captor moving away did she dare to stir. Pulling back the rags piled in the corner of the birdcage, she revealed the chicken bone she had stashed the previous night. Weaving the bone between the copper bars, she managed to insert one end into the lock when the cad began to speak. You join me on a most auspicious day, madam. The stars are aligned and the realm beyond grows near. Ideal conditions for a seance. This was excellent news. All of the cad's scams all of the CAD scams, the seance took the longest. Of
Oh,
all of the CAD scams, there was my mistake. I've messed up. Of all of the CAD scams, the seance took the longest. With any luck, she could pick the lock, shimmy down the pull string, and be out the cat door before he finished. Through the blue curtain separating the shelves from the rest of the room, the voice of an elderly woman spoke. Now, you're sure you've got my Donber? It's a common enough name, and I don't want to be asking my question of the wrong spirit. The cad was quick to soothe her. Madam, my mastery of mysticism is without peer. You may rest assured that I, Albador the Magnificent, shall see to it that your message reaches the dearly departed and no one else. But first, there is the little matter of the offering. Oh, yes, I remember, responded the woman. These here are the earrings Donber gave me for our 40th. Will they do for a proper spirit offering? There was a sound of something being slid across the table, and then Albador asked, Are these real sapphires? I'm asking on behalf of the spirits, of course. The woman choked back tears as she answered, They ought to be. Cost Donber 2 months of salary, the dear old fool, the dear fool.
I
Yeah.
you want to stop there and talk about
Yep.
this?
Okay. It's a very interesting opening.
Yep.
Um,
Good hook, right
I
reaction, no
yeah,
backstory to weigh us down or anything like that. We're in the moment.
yeah. I like that we're in the moment. I like the opening. I like the way that we're given enough information to get going with. We understand that her captor is some kind of con artist. Um, we get that he's busy with a client. His personality is very well shown in this moment,
Yes.
right? In his taking, I mean, I really feel for the for the client here,
Right.
handing over, her 40th anniversary present from her husband. So those are all good parts.
Yes.
What I am missing is some of Nora's emotions.
Yeah. Well, not just some.
Yeah,
There's none.
yeah,
There's no connection to Nara, which we're supposed to be connected to. She's the POV character. So I don't think any of this needs to go. I think it needs to be expanded upon, adding in Nara's, because she's doing something. She's trying to pick this lock during this whole
yeah,
time. So I want to be that. And I want something to happen, that is going to it's going to add, because there's no tension, there's no conflict
yes,
between Nara and the story.
yes. And also, so this is something that I've had to master because one of my characters in Sangwell is a child, right? So she overhears a lot of conversations that she's not part of. And not because she's listening for it, but because she's around adults and they're not talking to her, right?
Right.
Um, and when you have a situation like that, which is also the situation here, because the character is not part of the unfolding scene,
Right.
but you still have to find a way to bring the events of the unfolding scene back to why it matters to the character.
Yeah.
You need the character to experience the emotions that you want the reader to have
Yes.
because of the conversation.
Yeah.
And
Or
every few lines of the unfolding events, it needs to come back to the character.
oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, right now, Nara is a disembodied camera. We're
Yes.
watching a movie screen, and we're sitting in the audience, and Nara's just sitting in the audience with us.
Yeah.
Like, you know, we don't even hear Nara munching on her popcorn next to us. Like, she's literally just sitting in the theater. She has nothing to do with the story, and therefore we feel disconnected from it.
Yeah.
You know, that's the beauty of, today's limited prose, is that we're going to be a part of this now.
Yeah.
And I do want to say there's many ways to do it. Your way is 100%, exactly right, as far as, allow Nara to, even though she's not a part of the conversation, to be affected by the conversation, to have emotions over the conversation. Another way to do that is just to have the conversation happening, and Nara's struggles have literally nothing to do with the conversation. But we still,
And
we're trying to unpick this lock. We're trying to worry about
But if
You know,
you,
escape. We're trying to worry
yeah,
about not being overheard. We're trying to, oh, I just made a squeak and they looked my way and I'm
yeah,
looking all innocent and, you know, that conflict. So it really doesn't matter where the tension comes from,
mm,
but we need that tension and we need that connection to Nara that just doesn't exist as it stands in the opening pages. So for the most part, well written. There's a few little stupid typos and some things like that. Yeah, punctuation. This writer, for whatever reason, at the beginning, before every single piece of dialogue has no punctuation.
yes,
Most of the time, it needed a period like the one you added there. So the first time that the person speaks, the sentence is weaving the bone between the copy bars. She managed to insert one end into the lock when the CAD began to speak. And then she just has no punctuation other than the opening quote.
mm,
Join me on a most auspicious day. I mean, it needs a sentence,
yeah.
or it needs to be a sentence. It needs a period there. There's another one further down. Um, Not
The
that one because
CAD
that
was
one's
quick to soothe her.
right.
Madam, my mastery of mystery and mysticism, my mastery of mysticism is without peer. Now, there you could either put the period as I did, or you could actually put a comma there in theory. It's kind of shaky ground though, because
It
it's not
is.
really a speech tag.
So the one in the paragraph above it is also the same way. The voice of an elderly woman spoke. I think that's a period because I think it's a sentence, but technically there's an argument, just like you did for the next one. There's an argument for a comma. Because, you know, what is a
Yeah.
speech tag? A speech tag is only a speech tag if it shows or really tells, because most speech tags are just
Mm,
tells, if it tells how the dialogue is spoken, not who said it, but how it was said.
mm,
Um, and that's why even like said Drake is a speech tag because I'm saying it out loud. So you're telling me how I'm saying it,
yeah.
as opposed to thought Drake or whatever. If it doesn't, which both of these, like I said, me and Marie would period both these because they don't
Yeah.
really tell how the dialogue is being told. But there's another one further down.
So the odd thing is that when this author splits the dialogue, they do actually punctuate correctly. Look at this.
Right, right.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, at the
Oh yes,
if
I remembered. Comma.
the woman.
Responded the woman. Period.
If
That is 100% correct. Perfectly punctuated.
Yeah, if the speech tag comes after the dialogue, this author has done that correctly. But like
Yeah.
this one that you're on there, Al Albador asked, that would be a comma
Yeah.
because that's a speech tag. He's how are we saying this dialogue? We're saying it as a question. So Albador asked.
Yeah.
But again, it becomes before, and so for whatever reason, and then yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
So so to the author, if you're watching this, punctuate the before speech tags exactly like you do the after speech tags, and they're perfect.
well, except for like that one, I
Yeah.
think needs a period. Um,
Onset is shaky because it is kind of a speech tag, but yeah, you could make an argument either way.
Well, because but in this case, so just to split hairs, because
Mm.
again, you're right.
Yeah.
This is 100% that there's an argument for it,
Yeah.
but it's an action. The
Mm.
woman choked back tears as she answered. It doesn't say how she's answering. It literally
Yeah.
is just the action of answering, she's choking back tears.
Yeah.
So that's why to me, I would put a period there.
And
Um,
and of course, you know, English grammar is so consistent, and there's
yes.
absolutely nobody who ever argues about it at all.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I mean, there's that. But that was the only real grammatical. I mean, there's a
There's a
typo,
typo here. It's
but I
shell with
never.
double L, but that's just a typo, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, exactly. Um, I don't usually pick on typos so much. Punctuation,
Yeah.
when it's consistent, means the author doesn't realize that they're making the error. So I will usually go through that. But um, but yeah, the big thing is that there's just no conflict between the POV character and the story.
Yes.
So well written, great hook as far as I'm interested. Like, why am I in a cage?
Yeah.
Why am I small enough to be in a bird cage and it doesn't sound like the rest of the world around me isn't? Because I'm going to go through a cat door. Cat doors are not notoriously big unless, you know, your cat is a lion. And then it's weird in a different way.
Yep.
but so obviously, whatever I am as Nora, I'm smaller than the surrounding. And now maybe these people are giants and I'm normal size, or maybe I'm something tiny and they're normal humans, whatever. I don't know yet. And that's great. I really like that mystery of letting me figure it out. But because we introduced Nora in the beginning and then never mention her again, and she's just a passive camera from then on out, that's the big
Yeah.
hit for me.
That I agree. That for me is the big drawback as well. I will say that I'm really intrigued to find out what Nora is. So I'm actually quite tempted to read on
Well,
because it
yeah,
is a good question.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
but I do want to nitpick a few things before we move on.
Okay.
Okay. So on line 3, pulling back the rags piled in the corner of the birdcage. Perfect. She revealed. But she's taking the action. No one else can be taking the action. Why
Right.
revealed? Why is revealed the verb there? It
Right.
feels like it weakens the sense, right? Um,
As opposed to she uncovered, she
yeah,
pulled out, um,
yeah,
he
um,
retrieved.
yeah. Pulling back the rags piled in the corner, she uncovered her stash of chicken bones. We don't even know, we don't even need to know that she stashed it the previous night. And I feel like that she had stashed also makes it a little bit more clumsy. Right? It doesn't need to be that level of detail. It can just be she um um some I see. I don't like the she revealed there. Like
Oh
I
yeah,
just
no, it's definitely I don't like the revealed because it's too that becomes omniscient because
yeah,
now
it
it's a
feels
third person
yeah
narrator talking about her as opposed to because I don't say and then I revealed this. No, I just
yeah
grabbed, I uncovered, I did. So I 100% agree with that. I will push back because so one of the things about editing, and me and Marie know this, but
yeah
it's we need to say this. This is more for you guys than for us. When outside of the more factual stuff, like the first two things we talked about, the punctuation and the lack of tension, when you start getting into a lot of this stuff, it is a lot subjective.
mm,
So when you hear something like, oh, this is too wordy, I would cut this down, it means that that person is that's their feeling on it, which is 100% valid. They are 100% right. But it doesn't mean that that it's right for you.
yes
Um, and so that's one of the reasons why, like, when my writers group, when somebody critiques something, even if I don't agree necessarily with my pushback, I still like to do a pushback just to give the author other ways of thinking about the same thing.
mm,
So, but in this one, I kind of like the head stash the previous night because it builds a it's sort of like to kind of co-opt your stealing tension from the future. It almost steals tension from the past because it's like we've been here for a night. We've already been planning this without having to do backstory.
sure okay
Not saying it can't be written differently, but I'm just saying I
but
do
I
like
don't
Ash the previous night because of the fact that it does bring in something that builds something really quickly. That's
I
my point.
don't like it as part of the sentence.
I can see that.
Because the sentence already has a longer rund. Then there's the chicken bones.
Right.
Then it's the little bit of tension of she had stashed it, like this
Right.
plan's been a night in the building. It
Right.
feels like it's too much for one
It
sentence.
is. And if I was writing it, you're 100%
Mm,
right. I might write something like pulling back the rags piled in the corner of the birdcage. She withdrew the chicken bones,
mm,
um, you know, hidden there, period.
yeah,
She had stashed them after last night's, dinner or whatever. I'd bring in
yeah.
something that would,
Like how had they gotten here? Did she
right,
eat?
exactly.
Did she
Well,
did you know?
the plan. I would bring in the fact that I've been scheming this for a while. This is a
Yeah,
planned event.
yeah,
Um, and there is a way to bring in a little bit of that because that lets you know that this character is actively and has been actively working on this.
yeah.
And also, the plan being in its own separate sentence is going to be stronger to be
Yes,
consumed as opposed to here on the end. So I
yes,
wasn't pushing back on the fact of I don't necessarily agree with how it's written,
yes.
but I do like the information.
Fair enough. That's fair enough. I think it just it does for me need to be not part of that
Yeah,
sentence.
yeah. Yeah, and I 100% agree with that because it
Then,
does become this longer run-on
yeah.
sentence.
Then the next sentence, weaving the bone between the copper bars, she managed to insert one end into the lock when the cat began to speak on line 4 and 5. So my problem here is, okay, so she's weaving the bone in, she weaves it in, and then she managed. Oh, managed is such a weak verb.
It is.
She inserted one end into the lock. It's manage doesn't add anything there.
No,
It
not at all.
really doesn't. It's just weak. um, and my other problem is that, okay, she inserted one end into the lock when the cat began to speak. That when the cat began to speak makes all of this one paragraph. And the problem is you now have somebody in a completely different location doing a completely different action, not related to Nara and her lock picking abilities, that is embedded in the same paragraph.
Yep.
So ideally, you want weaving the bone into the copper bars. She inserted one end into the lock, and then period. And from outside the curtain, the CAD spoke.
Right.
And that is my other problem with it. We all know how I feel about stage direction words like began, then. You don't need them. They basically just weaken the sentence. It is very rare that you need those words.
Yes.
Especially here, since nothing interrupts him. He just spoke. The cat spoke.
Right.
Yeah.
And then also that means that we can divide out her actions. We can put another paragraph out in the middle of 8. This was excellent news.
Yeah. And then this was excellent news. All of the CAD scam with the scenes took the longest. So,
Yes.
oh, and then, okay. So I know why the author is doing with any luck. She could pick the lock, simmer down. I get that.
That was the one that I was going to pull out.
Yes. Why don't you take it then?
I um and you see this in so many stories. This is a very common use thing, and I get why people do it. Just like you were saying, you're like, oh, I'm showing you what their plan is. I literally just talked about this on Tuesday in the writers' room because they now it was more than just this one sentence. It was the character literally went, okay, so here's my plan. I'm gonna go here. I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna get that. I'm gonna then kill this guy. I'm gonna then go here, and then I'm gonna do this. And it was like this huge 2 or 3 paragraph long dissertation of their plan. And I'm like, okay, here's the problem that I have with that. More than likely, none of this is gonna go right. And so therefore I just wasted my time reading this plan when I could have just said, you know, a plan formed his mind and he felt confident about it, whatever. It's a terrible thing, but whatever. Or it is going to happen exactly like this. And I've just read it. Like neither one of those is a good solution. Now, this obviously isn't paragraphs and paragraphs, but it's so much more active, in my opinion, to have done something like, as she frantically worked with a lock, her eyes strayed to the cat door on the far side of the room. And then if we wanted to bring in a little bit of internal tension, we could have her inner monologue. Even if I get down, can I make it across before he steps on me or whatever? So there's just a more active way to do it as opposed to with any luck, like, because again, that becomes very omniscient narration as opposed to I'm the narrator.
Yeah. And it becomes a lot closer to the
Yes.
character, and you start building that internal tension if you make her feel nervous about the execution of her plan.
Yes. And then it still gives the information to the reader that you're trying to give to the reader, but stays in close.
Yes. So yeah, I this I would change pretty much something like Drake said.
And then there's a real weird petty one that we can fight over.
Okay.
And I can't believe I'm saying this because I'm normally on the other side of this, but to me it kind of screams for it. It was toward the end of the where you were reading. basically there was a sentence in there that I went, oh my goodness, I can't believe I'm gonna recommend that it needs a semicolon. Oh, there it is. Line 9. This was
Line 9.
excellent news. This was excellent news. Semicolon. Of all the CAD scams, comma, the sentence, the seance took the longest. You could also put a period, obviously, because what does a semicolon do? It separates two complete sentences.
Yeah.
But one, it would eliminate you stumbling over the of, because now it becomes its own sentence.
Mm.
So, but they are, the other thing about a semicolon is they need to be intimately linked. And so the reason why I like the semicolon here is then there's no way the reader can confuse what the excellent news is. The excellent news is the seance being the scam that takes the longest. So I
Okay.
don't use semicolons very often.
But
Um,
hear me out.
oh, an M dash could work as well. Yeah, and a period could work as well. Like I said, there's definitely more ways to do it.
Yeah.
But this is the quintessential definition of why you would use a semicolon. You know,
Yes.
like for what a semicolon
Yeah.
exists, this sentence is
Yeah.
the,
This
you know,
sentence
again,
is a semicolon sentence. You're right.
right.
Yeah.
Yes, me and you especially are not fans of the semicolon, probably you more less than me, but
Yeah.
because I use them occasionally, I do. But they have to be exactly like this. They have to be two
Yeah.
complete sentences. They have to be so intimately linked that I want to put that semicolon in there so that you connect the two because you read it more as
Mm.
one sentence than as two separate sentences. M dash works here as well.
Yeah. Yeah. I know that grammatically the semicolon is probably the correct punctuation to use here. I just have an unnatural hatred of them.
Right. No,
So
no, I get it. That's why I said we're going to be
yeah.
on. This is going to be a contentious thing between us, but technically, by definition,
Yeah.
the actual grammatical definition, and if I was writing that, I would use the
Yeah.
semicolon because I tend to use M dashes, and so
Yeah.
anytime I can not use one,
I'd
I'm gonna
use I would use the semicolon. I mean the M dash.
right.
Or I would just leave it as a comma and be like, yes, it's a splice, bite me.
Yeah, that's the problem that I have with it. I definitely
Yeah.
wouldn't leave it as a comma. It can, 100% can be,
Yeah.
but you're gonna have exactly like what you did,
Yeah.
where you might stumble over the line or whatever.
Mm.
So, yeah, I can't believe I'm on the side of fighting for the semicolon.
But yeah, let's move on to line 24. So we've just woman's just handed over her earrings. Magnificent, a perfect offering indeed. We may now dare to peer past the veil of life and death and commune with the realm of spirits. I warn you, my good Mrs. Bearden, this is a venture into danger. Take heed and follow all my instructions, and we may yet live to see another dawn. The lights from behind the curtain began to flicker and change. Smoke of many colors filled the room, and clatter of shifting furniture was heard. Nara bit her lip. There was normally more build-up before the light show. The cad was skipping steps. She had to hurry. A slight shift in the metal was felt through the bone, perhaps the tumbler of the lock. Only a little more force was needed, then surely the cage would open. She put her weight against the bone to gain a bit more leverage, when the tip snapped. Naira mouthed every obscenity she knew as she tossed the broken pick aside, but no sound escaped her lips. None had since the silver collar had been placed around her neck. Noisy merchandise was bad for business. Okay, I'm going to stop there because I have nits to pick.
Well, before you do, I got to pick on you.
Yeah.
You you read Nara as Nahara, your character. All
Nara.
right. Yeah. You said Nahara's mouth open. And it just made me giggle.
Okay. So, the lights from behind the curtain began. Does not, it just be flickered.
Yeah, flickered and changed.
Lick it
Watch
and
your
check.
wishy-washy words. There's no reason for them. They don't add anything. They actually just slow down the action and distance the reader from them.
Exactly. There is no reason to put them in. You think that they're sketching a certain image, but all they're actually doing is weakening the sentence.
Right.
It's literally
And
all.
and really for words like began, begin, started, all of those, the thing I try to impart on people is the only time you want to use those is if the action is actually interrupted.
Yeah.
Um, you know,
Then
Marie
I'm going
began to talk, but Drake cut her off.
exactly.
Just like that. Because then I want to paint the picture of you actually starting and being interrupted.
Yeah.
But if you aren't interrupted, if it's just, and then, Marie began to talk and then have 3 paragraphs of you saying words. It's like, well, she didn't begin to talk. She just talked. Like,
Yeah.
there's no began there.
Yeah. Exactly. Now, the other thing on line 27, a sentence start that goes as follows: smoke of many colors filled the room, and clatter of shifting furniture was heard. By who?
Yeah.
That is a passive. It is the definition of a passive sentence, and it
Yes.
really doesn't need to be there. It's very simple to fix. And shifting furniture clattered.
That's one way to do it. You could also bring it in to make it personal. Smoke of many colors filled the room, and the clatter of shifting furniture um bit into Nara or heightened Nara's um concern, made her fingers work faster, like
Yeah.
whatever. Like we can bring it into the POV character as well.
Yeah.
Even like if you combine that next bit, um, and shifting furniture clattered, comma, um, causing Nara to bite her lip or whatever.
Yeah. And then we get Nora biting her lip, which is good. There was normally more build-up before the show. Good. The cat was skipping steps. I would make this its own sentence.
Yep.
It has sufficient strength, especially followed by she had to hurry. Like it
Well,
gives you, because they're short, they give you that staccato feeling.
yeah, I have a problem with she had to hurry.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
You
I
don't
just think,
need it.
well,
Click the
not only do
speed.
you not need it because you're just telling me what was already shown. You're showing
Yeah.
me that she has to hurry, and then you're going to tell me she has to hurry.
Yeah.
And that's a sentence that is just the writer not trusting their own abilities as a storyteller.
Mm.
All of the rest of this is going to show me, and especially if you add a little bit more than just Nara bit her lip. If you give me that, like everything starts going and then she gets nervous and she starts fumbling because like, oh my goodness, he's skipping steps. There's never going to be enough time now. Those are all things that are showing me her panic as opposed to just telling me she
Yeah.
has to do that.
Then on line 31, here we're passive again. A slight shift in the metal was felt through the bone, perhaps the tumbler of the lock. But clearly this is Nara feeling
Yes.
that. So why is this passive? What are you
Yes.
trying to hide from me? Like
Yeah.
um
A
the the
slight a slight
the
shift reverberated through the
yeah,
bone or whatever.
yeah. A
And then
slight
perhaps
shift
the
in
tumbler.
metal reverberated through the bone.
Yeah. Also, and I say this all the time, you should never write the word feel or felt in narrative because it's always a tell.
Yep.
And your wases are always also a huge red flag. Now, I always got to be very, very, very cautious of this because for some reason, every time I say that, somebody out there goes, "Oh, I need to write a manuscript and no wases." No, we're not saying that. What we're saying is that wases are red flags.
Yes.
Like in these last 2 times, they were both passive voice red flags, and they don't need to be there. They need to be cut. But sometimes the sky was blue. I mean, it's just a linking verb. And the sky was blue. Sky equals blue. It's fine.
Yeah. And sometimes you use them if you're writing continuous, like um
Well, like
uh
the next sentence, although I hate
Louis was running. Yeah. Only
right.
a little. Yeah.
I got problems with that sentence, but exactly the was in there is fine.
Yeah.
Only a little more force was needed, and then again, there's
Yeah.
so much wrong with it, but the was isn't wrong. Like it's the
Yeah.
one word in there that isn't wrong.
Yeah. but you should check every was in
Every.
your manuscript to make sure that it's correct.
Yeah.
And that you mean to use it there and all the rest of that.
Wases are great ways to find your tells, your passive voice,
Yeah.
Your wishy-washiness. So many people write. So it's the same thing as what you have up on line 27 with wases. So instead of began to flicker, they'll say the lights from behind the curtain was flickering and changing. Again, it's the same thing as began to. So that
Yeah.
was is a great example of, yeah, just make it stronger. Just don't be wishy-washy with your prose. It flickers, it
Yeah.
changes, it's in your face, it's now, it's active.
Yeah.
That's what we're looking for with these verbs, as opposed to it kind of began and flickering and it was changing and it started to get dark and we might feel a little scared. Like, no,
Yeah.
like we want to be strong and active and in our readers' faces.
Yeah. Then only a little more force was needed and surely the cage would open. I think the author is going for internal monologue here. Or some sort of internal monologue.
So I don't feel that. Because if I was doing this inner monologue, I might do something like a little more, just a little more. And then that
No,
brings me into the character and it's in voice and all of that. But they're not
I
using inner monologue at all here. I think this is more like that other line where you're telling me the future. You're trying to sort of almost like what you like to say. You're almost borrowing tension from the future.
no, because they're setting it up, the author's setting it up so that you're like, okay, just push, and then the thing breaks off and snaps.
Right.
Right? Like they're not borrowing tension from the future, they're pushing it forward. And
Well, but
I
it's the surely the cage would open. That's
no,
the part.
100%. 100%. I'm not saying they've done it well. I'm saying I think that's what they were going for.
Oh, yeah. No, you're
Yeah.
100% right. I'm just saying
Yeah.
this falls into that. You're
Yeah.
kind of almost borrowing that tension from the
Yeah.
future because you're saying surely the cage is going to open in the future if I just do this a little bit more. And it's like, yeah. So the only I have a problem with, the surely I have a problem with. There's so many more active
Don't
ways to
call
do
me
it.
Shirley.
And don't call me Shirley.
Yeah.
So there's just more active ways. Again, it's one of my reasons why I love inner monologue so much. And I get not everybody uses inner monologue. I'm not saying everybody needs to use inner monologue, but I'm just showing this as an example. When we get into this and we're like, if Nara was to say just a little bit more, just a little bit more, please, like we start to hear her internal desperation and struggle, and
Yeah.
then we can give the emotion of, instead of she put her weight against the bone, that also in my opinion weakens it. The tumbler press, the lock shifted, and then the tip snapped.
Yeah.
Then I want to get Nara's heart sank,
Also,
whatever. I want to get that emotion, as opposed to Nara mouthed every obscenity she knew as she touched the broken pick aside. That's
the tip snapped should certainly be its own sentence because this is the
yes,
whole plan unraveling.
yes,
Right?
100%.
It deserves its own sentence. It might
Yep.
even deserve its own
Own
paragraph, but it
paragraph. Yep.
certainly deserves its own sentence. And then I agree. Nora mouthed every obscenity she knew is a weak way of showing the emotion.
Yep.
Either actually like tell me what she's saying, or trying to say, or like take me inside her and have her heart sink, have have her have the emotion have some physical effect, something.
Yeah.
Now, what is interesting here is her collar.
Yes.
Okay, this is very interesting. I'm seriously, despite all my nitpicking, I am intrigued by the story.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
So, but a better way to do this at this point, a way to really do it, is to have her try and speak, and have it in dialogue tags, and then say no sound came from her throat.
Right. So I don't disagree with that.
Yeah.
For me, it's always about the drama. and always about the showing and the emotions and everything like that. So, you know, I might do something like the tip snapped and just go into the trauma of what she's feeling as far as like, you know, the world, and with it the world slammed down upon her. There would be no escape, there would be no whatever. She fell to her knees and screamed at the top of her lungs, and then
No,
that no sound,
escaped.
you know, no sound. She made no sound, of course, because of the silver collar, and she wasn't 100% sure she was upset by that this time or whatever, because then it would
Yeah,
have given her away and all this other stuff. So
yeah,
I could have just, there's just a huge opportunity to go into much more drama here, much
mm,
more, because that's the thing. This is the perfect example of when I talk about people are editing and they look at what they've written and they go, okay, what word can I change or whatever to fix this? And it's like, stop doing that.
mm,
So we have Nara mouthed every obscenity she knew as she tossed the broken pick aside, but no sound escaped her lips. Okay, so what are we trying to show? We're trying to set up the silver collar, the magic that's around her neck. We're trying to show that she, no matter what she says, no sound escapes, and so on and so forth. So since we now know what we're trying to accomplish, instead of looking at the sentence and going, oh, Nara mouthed every obscenity she knew. Okay, so that's a little weak. What word could I change to make that stronger? No, what am I trying to accomplish with a sentence? Okay, I'm trying to accomplish this. Now, is there 10 other ways to write that same thing? Yes. You said she could actually voice the, you know,
mm.
the words. I went with the
Scream.
emotional cramming down on her and her dropping to her knees and screaming.
Mm.
Like there's a million ways to do it. It's unlimited when you stop looking at the sentence you wrote and trying to fix the sentence and instead just think of what the sentence is delivering to the
Yeah.
audience.
And just show that.
Yes.
Then the other thing that I actually want to highlight here is something that I like is I like this line on line 35. Noisy merchandise was bad for business. It is a good was, in my opinion. It's a tell, sure, but it's a good tell
I
because
agree.
it immediately tells me that Nara is considered merchandise.
Yes.
That makes her a slave. She's sentient, she's a slave.
Yes.
Okay.
Now, you're not going to like this because it's a
Yeah.
little bit of a flashback, but another way to do it just popped into my head. Um, the cad's the cad's words came back to her as he clamped the silver metal around her neck, or the silver necklace around her neck. Quote, noisy merchandise is bad for business, end quote. So a little bit of a flashback, but it's a memory and it's right in there and it's in the moment and she's experiencing it and all of that. So I like the line too. I agree.
Maybe.
It
I,
just
I
popped into my head.
Yeah, the it doesn't bother me that much. Because it's a very short flashback, but I feel like this line all by itself communicates all of that
Yep.
without even needing the flashback.
Yep.
Because it's clearly not a line that she'd have thought of. It's clearly a line that's been told to her, right? I mean,
Mhm.
yeah,
I'm just with that. If you did go into that, you could bring in personality to the cur. Um, she remembered the wicked grin painted across the cur's mouth as he clamped the silver necklace around her throat. Noisy merchandise is bad for business. Like
yeah,
you can build the scene.
yeah, yeah, you can.
Again,
But
nothing wrong with this line. I like
yeah,
this line. I'm agree with you 100%. I'm just
yeah,
giving
yeah.
other
Alternative points of view.
just ways of thinking.
Okay. Then on line 36, I do not like meanwhile.
Yeah, no.
Albador's performance continuing is fine.
Yep.
Albador's performance continued, except it
Period.
needs a full stop,
Yep.
period. But you don't need that meanwhile.
No. 100%.
It's just stage
A lot
direction.
of stage direction in here.
Yeah. Um, Albador's performance continued. I can see it now, Mrs. Bearden. The land beyond. I see the faces of all the deceased around us. Now, madam, what is your question? What would you ask of those of the realm beyond? Oh, please, kind spirits, I don't mean to bother, but I just need to know Donbury's there. I just need to know he's settled on the other side. Listening to
I
Mrs.
let's stop for just a second,
Yeah,
because both these paragraphs are talking heads. Now,
yes.
not saying this is bad. This actually is not a talking head thing that offends me, makes me want to whatever. However, I just want to talk about the fact that one of the reasons why I rage so much against talking heads is every one of them is missed opportunities.
Yeah.
So, you know, and again, Albador's performance continued is absolutely just a tell. So instead, you know, we could write what Albador does. Albador raised his hands in the air, fingers out like claws.
I don't
I
think
can
we can
see it.
see him because there's a curtain.
Oh, can we not see him at all?
I don't think we can see him. We can maybe see a silhouette at best. But you
I
could
do remember the
describe
curtain.
the voice the way that
Right.
the way that I
Yeah.
read it.
If we
Yeah.
can't see him, then we can hear, you know, we
Yeah.
could definitely go more descriptive in other avenues. I
Yeah.
missed that part. Sorry.
Yeah.
So if we can't see him, then yeah, obviously you couldn't do what I just said. You
Yeah.
do need to stay consistent with it.
Yeah.
But it's still all missed, you know, oh please, kind spirits, um, period, close quote, a quiver entered the woman's voice, um, whatever. I mean, there's
Yeah.
again, if we can see her as tears welled in her eyes or whatever, we can't see
Yeah.
her, we can't see that. But every time you have talking heads, and what I mean by talking heads is just lines of dialogue with nothing attached except for a speech tag, just because all speech tags are telly. So if it said, you know, Albador said, I can see it now. It's the same thing as saying Albador's performance continued. It's just a tell. You're just telling me what's happening instead of showing me what's happening. So when I talk about talking heads, it doesn't matter if there's a speech tag there because speech tags don't do anything.
Yeah.
They're just tells of who said it. There are always missed opportunities for ability to expand the scene, expand the character of the characters, expand. There's just so much you can do with talking heads that goes unused when you just have dialogue, 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 dialogue.
I
Anyway,
will
that's
push
it.
back. I will push back one tiny little bit just to say once again for the people out there who, you know, listening, going like, but sometimes a piece of naked dialogue, yes.
Yeah,
Sometimes a piece of naked dialogue standing by itself is more powerful than adding descriptors and tones. But
yes,
then the piece of dialogue by itself must stand
is the
that.
show.
Yeah. Yeah.
The piece of dialogue is the show.
Yes.
And while I'll agree with that, the pushback that I will give on what I said was it's just missed opportunities. It doesn't mean you have to take advantage of every opportunity
Yeah.
because if you do, you'll bloat your manuscript.
Yes.
But all of them are missed opportunities. All of them can be utilized. But I'm not saying take advantage of all of them.
Yes.
You know, you're always going to have, you know, as you said, naked dialogue. I call it talking heads, but you're always going to have a piece of dialogue by itself every once in a while. I do.
Yeah.
Probably every 3 or 4 pages, there's going to be one line of dialogue that's by itself.
Yeah.
Occasionally, shockingly, I might even do it twice on one page. Because for me, there's 2 requirements to have a naked piece of dialogue. One, the dialogue by itself has to be stronger on its own and it's weakened when I add stuff to it. And 2, no one will ever confuse who said it. Like it is so, I mean, like the example I always use when I'm teaching this is, you know, the drill instructor got into the private's face, spit flying from his mouth. Do I make myself clear? Next paragraph. Sir, yes, sir. Like, you're not going to know. There's no confusion of who said, sir, yes, sir. Like, you're so grounded. The scene is so well set. It's obviously the pirate private who is answering the drill instructor, who is screaming at him. Like, it's just, and so those are the 2 requirements.
Yeah.
Is it better by itself than with something else? And is there no possible way that the reader will misunderstand who said that piece of dialogue? And as long as I check both those boxes, I have naked dialogue. It's fine.
Yeah. Yeah. So I agree with that. Guess let's.
All right. So just to put a nail in that before we move on, if we look at these 2 pieces of dialogue, both of them check the first box. Well, the second piece definitely checks the first box because it doesn't have, I mean, the first one is you have Albador, but the second piece checks the second text box. We 100% know that it's the woman. We're never going to get lost on that.
Yeah.
However, would adding more detail to this line weaken it? No.
No.
It would only enhance it. So therefore, it wouldn't be a piece of naked dialogue to me. So
Yeah.
even though there's no way the reader can not know who said it, that's only half of the equation.
Yeah.
It would be improved and strengthened if I gave a little bit more information about the woman, how she was saying it, what her emotions that she's feeling. And I don't mean internally because we're not in her head. That's why I said her voice quivered or tears welled in her eyes. It has to be an external thing because we can only see her and hear her. We're not
Yeah.
inside her. We're inside of Nara. So, but any of that would increase the immersion of this scene. So therefore, this would never be a piece of dialogue by itself to me because it doesn't check that second checkbox or the first checkbox in this case.
Yeah. Okay. Then line 41. Listening to Mrs. Bearden's desperate plea put a stone in Nara's stomach. If the cad had his way, he would see to it she would be returning again and again, each time paying a bit more for nothing but than the promise of hope. For the moment, Nara set aside her own plans to escape and looked to either side of the cage. The right was an old rusted cauldron, and to the left a glass display with a wolf's skull, both oddities Albador tried to pass off as valuable artifacts. She measured the broken bone against her arm. It may just be long enough. Okay, so I'm just going to stop right there on this paragraph because I do want to talk about it. I like this paragraph for the little bit of personality we glimpse from Nara. Despite her plans being upset, despite this being her opportunity, she's willing to help somebody else, which speaks a lot about character. And, it does help the reader get more into it.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't like the listening to this. It's very plain. Like, I would rather have some kind of connection to it. Like, the desperate plea put a stone in Nara's stomach rather than listening
Well,
to, because
yeah, you could
listening to
literally you don't even have to change anything other than putting a period after Mrs. I noticed that she doesn't put periods after um her misses on any of these. But anyway, you could
yeah,
literally cut listening to. Mrs. Burden's desperate pleas put a stone in Nara's stomach.
yeah,
Like that's it. You don't need, so the listening to is a filter.
yeah,
Everything that is listened to, if you're going to show it in narration, Nara's listening to it.
yeah.
She has to listen to it because she's the only narrator. Um,
If
After
the
that, I've got a lot of problems with everything, but go ahead.
Well, do you want to take the next sentence?
So yeah, like this sentence to me reads like, hey, Mr. Reader, because you're a 3-year-old and have no idea about the reality of the world, let me spell out in excruciating detail everything that's going on here, because I know you're too stupid to realize it from everything that we just read and saw. I know you're never going to get that he is milking her for everything she has and that he's using hope against her, and he's going to do everything he can to bring her back again and again and again, because you're an idiot. So let me spell that out to you. It's just it, and again, this goes back to what I said earlier. This is that part of trusting the reader and trusting yourself.
Mm,
She did, like, literally in the second line of dialogue, we knew all we needed to know about Albador, and that he's a charlatan and a con man and a crook and a piece of garbage. And you showed us that.
yeah, absolutely.
And then down here, you go, I don't think I'm a good enough storyteller. So let me just spell it out
Yeah,
because, so one of two things, either you're insulting the reader or you're insulting yourself.
yeah.
But that's what this line is to me. It is a complete tell of what you just showed. And that is
You
both.
genuinely do not need that sentence. You
No,
you you have plenty sufficiently done a great job of painting the
100%,
cat's personality.
100%.
There's no need for
And this
it.
just comes with confidence as a storyteller.
Yeah, yeah.
Now, that confidence comes from testing. So,
Yes.
and it's testing every time because you never know when you actually succeed or when you failed until other people tell you. So, if I wrote this and reread it and I didn't have that line, I'd be thinking, yep, I am pretty sure I did my job. But then I'd give it to my beta readers and then they would read it. And one of the questions are, that I would ask them, and it would be an open-ended question, is, so how do you feel about Albador, and what do you think his motivation is? And then they would probably write, oh, if he has his way, he would see her returning again and again, and each time paying a bit more for nothing but the promise of hope. And I would be like, bing, 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 I've succeeded. If they go, so I think he's a seriously helpful guy that is really trying to, then I have failed.
Yeah.
I have failed miserably if I wanted, this dude, Albador, to be a cad.
Yeah.
I would seriously fail if my audience is like, no, I think he's a really genuine dude who's trying to help this woman out. He obviously has magical powers and he can talk to the spirits and this is all legit. And well, then I have failed. And then maybe I do need to come back and write a really crappy telly line because I didn't do my job. I wouldn't do that. I would just rewrite and show it more. But yeah, the only way to know, so you do it, you read it, you decide if you've succeeded, and then you test it. And if you've succeeded, the audience will tell you. Just make sure you ask those open-ended questions. How do you feel about this? What do you think their motivation is? What do you think is happening here? Let them tell you. Don't bait them. Don't go, so I'm trying to make Albador to be a thieving con artist. Do you think I succeeded? Because your audience is going to go, yeah. Because even if they don't feel you succeeded, if they say no, I don't feel you succeeded, they're going to think that they missed it.
Yeah.
That they're not good enough.
100%.
They're always going to feel that way.
Yeah.
So, you don't want to bait the witness. So you just say, hey, so you just read the scene about Albador. What do you think his motivations are? What type of person do you think he is? And then let them tell you what they think. And then you reconcile that on, is that what I wanted the reader to feel? Great. If it's not, then I have failed as a writer. They didn't fail as a storyteller because that's what they feel. That's 100% what they feel. They're 100% right on that. So yeah, so that's that line. And it's just, you have to have more trust in yourself as a storyteller. And, literally one of the biggest bonuses for me rewriting that first novel of mine that was ever published, even though it won awards, is that was probably my biggest weakness in that book. I would show and then tell, or I would tell and then show. And it's because I wasn't as confident of a storyteller back then. I didn't know if I was really hitting that mark. So I would then have to overcompensate. Because the reality is that she's not actually insulting her audience. She's insulting herself.
Yeah.
Like I don't know if I did it or not. So let me spell this out. Not that you're an idiot. So let me spell it out to you. I was being a little tongue in cheek with that one.
Yeah. Then, for the moment, and just by the way, for anybody listening, neither Drake nor I am certain what the gender is of the person writing this. So,
that is true.
Yeah. Just in case somebody was wondering. Yeah, for the moment, is stage direction. Not relevant.
So we haven't gone into this, and just to kind of, because we said it a few times, when you use words like next and then, for the moment, all of this stuff, of course it is like, and then next, this happened. Yeah, it's the next sentence I'm about to read. Why would I think it came before this? Like that's insane. So most of these stage directions they weaken the writing, they slow the writing down. We are here. Like, we know that. So just cutting that, like what Marie just did, Nara set her plans of escape, set aside her own plans of escape and look to either side of the cage. Like, we don't need for the moment. It doesn't do anything. It just gives us 3 words that we have to read and then try to paint in our head. And now we're just muddying the waters as opposed to just letting Nora. Of course it's happening right now.
Yeah.
Although the only pushback that I will give, and both of us feel the way I just said, and then it just popped to me that the author could be doing that as temporarily. Nora decided to temporarily set her plans to the side. And I just read it that way, and that's actually probably what she means, as opposed to stage direction.
And I get it.
I still don't think
it doesn't do anything.
Yeah, I still agree.
Yeah. Like I also realized that when I deleted it, I was like, They probably just mean like temporarily, but really it's not important because eventually Nara will either get back to her plans, thus showing the reader, or she will not, in which case she has set aside her plans. Like,
Right. Right. Exactly.
Nara set aside her own plans to escape and looked on either side of the cage. Okay. You can leave that. It's fine, I guess. But why did she look on either side of the cage? What is she looking for? Then we
Right.
get the description of the cage, which is fine. She measured the broken arm. It may just be long enough. So clearly she has a plan. But that I would prefer to have something here as to why she's looking in the cage. What is she looking for? Looking for inspiration. Looked around her for inspiration, anything like that.
Right.
Yeah.
Look for something to help the poor old woman,
Yeah.
or whatever.
Yeah.
Some motivation, not the plan.
Yeah.
Like, I actually don't mind the she measured the broken bone against her arm. It
Yeah.
may just be long enough. Like, long enough for what? I don't know, but that's
Yeah.
an open-ended question that I'm going to use to pull the reader through.
Yeah.
But I would like to know her motivation. And there is an argument to be said, well, she set her plans aside of escape. So obviously her motivation is to help this, but I don't know if it's not that obvious.
Yeah,
So
I would just like a little bit there in that to bring motivation. The
even if it was
description is,
something like determined to thwart Albador's plans, Nora set her own plans aside and looked around the room.
yeah,
Anything that brings in the motivation, anything that brings in,
yeah,
that. Again, you don't have to give us her plan. She can come up with a plan and go, ooh, it might
yeah,
just be long enough, as opposed to
yeah.
no motivation. So it's the motivation that I'm looking for.
The description is fine. That they're oddities, fine. That's fine.
The only thing I would say is this.
Yeah.
I highly encourage people to avoid using directions, and this is different from stage directions, but setting directions, unless it's absolutely necessary, because it causes a couple problems. If I was just to write, on one side, and again, there's that was, so instead of doing it this way, we might do an old rusted cauldron sat to one side, and a glass display with a wolf skull to the other.
Yeah.
If it does not matter that one is to the right and one is to the left, I'm going to allow the reader to put that wherever they want, because one of the things about the reader's imagination is, as they have inconsistencies in where things are, they can adjust it if they're the ones that created it.
Yes.
If you go to the right is this and to the left is that, and again, when I said the reader has inconsistencies, understand what I'm saying. You may have written it perfectly. You may have placed everything in your scene exactly where it is, and the reader should have been able to follow it. But some readers don't. Some readers get confused, and they're, painting things quickly and all of this other stuff. And so you said to the right
And
was
then
this and
like
the left
to
with
the,
this, but they
yeah, to the
was
right
it's
as I'm facing it, or to the right as I'm looking at it.
right. Right, exactly.
Yeah.
But like what we were talking about the last time we edited, there was the twins, and then there were the
Yeah.
two other kids, and then there's now 5 kids that he's talking about later. And now later we find out that he has an older child that wasn't among those 4. But since just those 4 kids were mentioned, there was an inconsistency that we created.
Yeah.
And so therefore it hurt our reading. So if it doesn't matter that it's to the right and to the left, now, if in the story it has to be this thing to the right because that's going to affect this thing or whatever, then of course we're going to paint that picture. But if it does not matter which side of the room things are on, or where things are at, by omitting it, what you allow is, let's say I do it this way. I paint the rusted cauldron to my right, and I paint the glass display to my left. But then I get down, and in my head movie, it couldn't be that way. It must be the other way around. My brain will just shift it because I'm the one who created that anyway, as
Yeah.
opposed to, no, you told me it was to the right and to the left, and now it doesn't feel right. And so now I'm stuck trying to reconcile that in my brain, and there's just a disconnect with it. So I highly encourage people to And a lot of this stems from how much violence I write and how much actual fighting I write. And so I do sometimes need to use that right and left and everything to show
Yeah.
where everything is at and how things are going. But even in a fight scene, I will just try to do, he kicked him, he punched him, as
Mm.
opposed to he punched him with his right fist and kicked him with his left,
Yeah.
whatever. Um, so I just highly encourage to watch that. And if you don't 100% need it to absolutely use it, I don't mean to need it to paint the picture, because obviously you're painting the picture if you use it.
Yeah.
But you need it for the story. Leave it
Yeah.
vague, allow the reader to do it, because then they can auto adjust as they go through.
Yeah. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think it may just be long enough is in the correct tense.
No, I think it would be it might.
Yeah.
I think may is
I think this should be it might just
it needs to be just. I agree. It
be
might
long enough.
be just long enough. Yeah, I think it's might. Yeah, it would be might just be. I
Yeah.
think
I think
that's
that's
getting
correct.
really nitpicky and some grammar, and so
Yeah.
we definitely could be wrong on that.
Yeah.
You can let us know in the comments. It also may just be completely subjective.
But I'm pretty sure it's in the wrong tense. Like I think
Yeah,
it's in present
right,
tense. Yeah.
right. Yeah, may is definitely a tense shift.
Yeah. And then the last few paragraphs, Albador began the climax he used with every new customer. I see the face of a man who looks content, filled with light and peace. But the connection is fading. I am doing all I can, but the door to the other side is closing. No, Donber, Mrs. Bearden cried out. Don't go. Just let me know it's you. Let me know you are all right. There was a crash. Glass scattered across the floor. The cad broke character and yelled, What in blazes? A crying Mrs. Bearden was heard rushing out of the front door as Albador crawled after her. No, wait, madame. A wolf's skull is a good omen, I assure you. Okay.
A lot.
Yeah. I
There's
don't like began. Again, stage direction.
I mean, we could write Albador's climax reached a crescendo he used with every new customer, period.
Yeah.
Because again, we have that weird, I don't punctuate before
Yes,
dialogue.
before dialogue.
Lowered and climax clash with me, but I mean, it's fine. I mean, there's a million ways to write that.
Yeah.
Just to bring it into more
It's just, to
personal.
me, a scam guy doesn't go up into a crescendo. He goes like, I can see it. They're like, it's a downward tilt because they want to convince you to pay more, not leave you on a happy note.
Mm, I would rewrite a lot of that then,
Yeah.
if that's what I was going for. But she has the climax, so I was going up.
Mm.
The
If you
word
go
climax would make me go up as opposed to going down.
crescendoed into the climax.
Yeah, I mean, there's a bunch of ways to write it.
Doesn't like me turning crescendo into a verb, but it can
Yeah,
suck
I'm
it.
not sure crescendo is a verb.
I know it's not. But you can make anything a verb in English. It's great.
Yeah,
The most adaptable language in the world.
I created Michael Bay as a verb.
Absolutely.
You Michael Bayed that.
I've created shelob as a verb. We're gonna shelob. and 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 then Lyron gets shelobbed.
Oh, little Tolkien reference there.
Yep. So the dialogue's fine. Mrs. Bearden cried out. I would like to know how she cried out.
Well, it's just a speech tag, so speech
Yeah.
tags are always tells.
Yep.
Mr. Bearden said, Mrs. Bearden cried out.
Yep. Punctuation gets weird there.
But that's fine.
Then there was a crash, glass scattered across the floor. Except, okay, sure, but Nara was instrumental in the crash. What
Right.
did she do to cause it?
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
would like
This is
to
where we get
know.
into The weird thing about this piece is there's just it goes into limited a little bit, and then it goes into omniscient, and then
Yeah,
limited and omniscient, and limited and omniscient. And this is that omniscient. We
yeah,
also have the there was a crash,
yeah,
which is just passive. So that was is a bad was. But also, you're right. I'm Nara,
yeah.
however we say it. I'm doing something that is causing this to go left at Albuquerque. I want to
Yes.
do that. I'm this character. Let me
Mm.
be the hero. I don't need this esoteric, oh, this thing happens. I have no idea where it came from. Yes, I do. I did it.
Yeah.
That was me.
Show me what I did. Show me.
Yes. Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. So that was a huge missed opportunity there.
Yeah.
Um, and then yeah, comma before or comma after yelled because it's a
Yeah.
speech tag.
Yeah.
But for whatever reason, this author doesn't punctuate 52, end of 52.
Uh,
And yes, that needs to be its own end of 52. Yelled, comma, what in
yeah.
the
Yelled.
what in blazes.
And this doesn't need to be was heard, who heard
Nope.
it, rushed out of the
Yep.
front door. You can even write
That's
the
it.
front
The
door
funny thing is that
slammed or whatever.
that's exactly what I said earlier, which was the
Yeah.
using the was and the ing as
Yeah.
opposed to an ed.
Yeah.
Um,
Out of the
so
front door as Alberto called after her. No, wait, Madame Wolfskull. Okay. So overall, like I will give the author this. I would probably read on,
yes.
despite the issues, because I am very interested in Nora and her thing. Like it is a really, really solid hook. It's a solid character. The idea is great.
Yep.
It you need to pick your voice here. Like if you are gonna go omniscient, I mean, I don't agree with your choice, but then go omniscient.
Right.
But if you're gonna go limited.
Yep.
Right? If you're omniscient, we should be able to see into the room.
Yes.
We should see the room as well as the cage.
Yes.
Since we're not, since you're limited to the cage, we're in limited. Be in limited.
Yep.
Show me what the character, let me do what the character is doing. Take me through the character.
Make me feel like I'm the character. Connect me
Yeah.
to that character. It's going to, just
Yeah.
make me enjoy the story so much more.
Yeah.
So
100%.
I want to go down this path. I've been talking about this a lot in the writer's room. I know for a fact that most readers have no idea of the effort that I put in to make them feel what they feel. I know they don't see the writing. I know they don't understand the difference between was heard rushing versus, she just rushed. I know they have no idea that I'm doing this. And
Yeah.
so it may sound really nitpicky when me and Marie talk about this stuff like this, where it's like, I mean, does it really make that big of a difference? It does. The reader doesn't know it, but the reader can read something and go, okay, I really enjoyed that story.
Mm.
Then they can read something else that had all of these attention to details and pushing them above outside of the pack and outside of the white noise that's out there and go, I really like this story a lot.
Yeah.
They don't know why they liked one a lot versus the one that they like. It's just the way it is. Yes, can readers enjoy a story that is poorly written? There's proof of that. I mean, Twilight, 50 Shades of Grey, the list goes on of
Yeah.
stories that are just horribly written, but they deserve to be successful because the story does what it's supposed to do and it impacts the reader. My point is, if you wrote it better, then not only would more people have liked it, you wouldn't have two, idiots on a podcast talking about how crappy written it was. Like,
Yeah.
it's just, and it really comes down to, and I talk about this a lot. I talk about this about the hook rate, which is how many people read, if they read one of your books, how likely are they to read the next one? Right now, the average on Amazon, and there's a lot of garbage on Amazon, but right now the average on Amazon is only about 20%. So the hardest thing to do is get a reader. That's the hardest thing to do, which means right now the average author on Amazon has to get 5 readers to read their first book to earn a fan that will read their next book.
Yeah.
5 times the market. The average in the industry is about 35%. New York Times bestsellers will get 60, 70%.
Yeah.
You know, and again, I run even higher than that. I'm not gonna say what it is. It's pretentious, but why do I run such a high hook rate? Not because I'm a brilliant genius god gift to storytelling. It has nothing to do with that. It's solely the effort and attention to detail that I put into there. For whatever reason, whatever little things that I'm doing all over the place, the readers feel it. They read my stuff and they go, wow, okay, I'm definitely reading everything this guy puts out, and I will probably read what this guy puts out. And I mean, maybe not, I'll read what this guy puts out. It's the same stories. The difference is just even though they don't know, all these things that we just talked about on this podcast that me and Marie push, and we push in the writer's room, and we talk about in other aspects, it all just adds up. That's really what it comes down to. And almost 1 million books are published every year right now. You're not competing against them from like me and Marie don't compete. Every fan that I get, Marie will get. Every fan Marie gets, I will get. Like, and not just because we're doing a podcast together, but we're in the same genre. We're looking at the same fans. We both push ourselves to write well. So, you know, it's not a pie as in I get this piece and I get to eat it and you don't get that fan. Like, that's not how this works.
Yeah.
But what you are competing with is the white noise created by that many stories. And so by pushing yourself to make these small changes, you know, that attention to detail, the getting rid of the wishy-washy words, the began, the starteds, the punctuating correctly, the not slipping into omniscient, the making sure we connect to the character and the conflict, and all this stuff we just talked about in this one little podcast.
Yeah.
All of those things will go a long way to making more of the people who read the first book buy your next book. And that's how careers are built. Careers are not built off of selling one book. Careers are built off of having a career of books. And you get fan bases that go, I love you. And what else you got? What else are you going to put out? Now, it does get wishy-washy when, like, a lot of mine and Marie's fans do not buy Magic Fall because they're like, we love both of you. Oh, it's sci-fi? Eh. And that is the danger when you step outside of your genre.
Yeah.
Like, people, I'm an epic fantasy fan. That's what I want to read. Why are you writing this sci-fi thing? Not that it isn't well written. It's just not my thing, is what the fan would say. So that is different. I'm not talking about that, but I'm talking about, you know, if I'm putting out consistent stuff and it's always good and you always can build that trust in me, that I'm always going to take care of you as, you know, somebody who has given me money, and now I'm going to take care of you, and you know this, then you're just going to keep buying. It's the reason why I stress so hard about the authors that, you know, their first book comes out and you're like, wow, that's a really good book. And you get their next book and it's like, you know, it's okay. And then their third book comes out and you're just like, yeah, I'm done. I don't want to read this person anymore. And more than likely, they got the big head. They were just like, I am awesome. I'm the best. I can puke words on the page and everybody will buy it. No, they won't. No, they won't. They will leave you because you earned their trust in the beginning and then you lost their trust. That's why I push myself every story. That's why Marie does the same thing. So I just wanted to go down that path because, you know, you hear us critiquing this stuff and it's like, wow, these guys are just so nitpicky that, you know, okay, so they got rid of one began. That doesn't change the story. No, it doesn't. No. If you get rid of one began in your story, it changes literally nothing. Yeah. If you do all of
these crits are not about the one began. It's not about the one mistake we fix. It's about looking at what we did to that amount of words that you sent us and changing your story to match.
Yes.
And when you're doing your editing, cutting out those stage direction words, those weak words, the verbs that add nothing. Like, what we're doing here is we're showing you what we believe weakens the overall story. And then you take that and you go apply it to your own writing. Whether this piece that we just critiqued was your own writing or not, look at your own writing and see if you're doing the same thing that we critique here.
Because that's the thing. It's all about, for me as a businessman, because that's what an author is. You are a small business owner. You sell a product, your brain. Like that's what you're selling. You're selling your ability to tell stories. The better you take care of your customers, the more they want to continue patronizing. Patronizing? No, not patron. Patronizing is the wrong one. Patronizing. It is right.
Patronizing.
Sorry.
Yeah.
That's the old dyslexia kicking in. The more they want to shop you. Let's just bring it down to blue collar words. And so sometimes when we get into these nitpicking things, I'm always afraid that people are gonna be like, wow, these guys they're so nitpicky, and what does it matter? And on any of those individual things, any individual one, none of it matters. It's as a group, it's that attention to detail that really does shine through. And even though readers don't know, I mean, I had a friend come in to town last night. I haven't seen him in 15 years. No, closer to 20 years. And the funny thing is he was a new friend that I had met just as I was starting to become a writer, but I was still working a day job. Matter of fact, I met him through my day job. He was a customer through my day job. And so we haven't seen each other in, 20 years or whatever. And so now I'm like, oh, right. I forgot, because I've been a writer for so long now. It's like, oh, right. You don't really know me as a writer. Interesting. And it was an interesting conversation. But one of the things we talked about was why the way I teach, and how I push everything and everything like that. And I'm just like, yeah, you don't understand how different of a language this is. So, there's just so many things that you don't know. And that's why listening to a podcast like this is so helpful, or joining the writer's room, or joining any critique group or whatever. So that's really it. I just want to make sure that you understand why we nitpick so much. It's not just the nitpicking. It's that when you add it all up, it makes a huge difference.
And it makes your book more engaging if you take the reader deeper in. And I think that is a good note on which to end this podcast. And we will see you soon for another one.
Bye.
Good day to our esteemed listeners. I'm Marie Mullaney, and it has been a pleasure guiding you through the nuances of writing and world building. If our podcast has enriched your authorial journey in any way, please consider liking and subscribing. Sharing our content with your peers is a powerful way to support our mission and ensure we continue to deliver insightful and valuable episodes. Your engagement is greatly appreciated. For a deeper understanding of the topics we've discussed, head over to Just in Time Worlds on YouTube. It is a treasure trove where fantasy meets history and science. Every Tuesday, you'll find new videos that delve into the intricacies of world building, drawing from our rich real-world history. Whether you're a writer, a role player, or just a fantasy enthusiast, Just in Time Worlds offers unique insights that will enrich your perspective. Check it out and join the journey of crafting incredible worlds.
If you are ready to take your writing to the next level and work with a group of highly motivated, dedicated writers who are all working to not only improve their writing, but improve your writing, plus you get to work with me on a weekly basis, then I'll encourage you to check out writersroom.us. This is a website that I have created that I really wish I had 30 years ago. It's everything a writer needs to become a better writer. Not only do we do weekly critique sessions, both from other members as well as me, we have daily writing sessions, I do monthly classes, Q&As, we have activities, I do all sorts of learning exercises, such as I do a quarterly writing prompt contest, and just tons and tons and tons of things. So if you're ready to get serious about your writing and you want to actually finish that novel and have a chance of it being published, then I encourage you to head on over to the Writer's Room and join me there. And as a special promotion for listeners of Releasing Your Inner Dragon, I'll go one step more. If you would like to get 50% off for 3 months, reach out to me. There's a million ways you can do that. You can do it through starvingwriterstudio.com, drakeu.com, any of my social medias such as LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, X, whatever. Reach out to me, say that you would like to check out the Writer's Room for 50% off, and I will send you a link that will allow you to do just that. So hopefully you're ready to start getting serious about writing, and I'll see you in the Writer's Room.